Perception and Communication, Chapter 3. This chapter is all about how we perceive other people and how other people may perceive us. And how does that affect the way that we communicate with one another and the way that we need to become better and develop our interpersonal communication skills. So the first thing that we're going to touch over is the process, the perception process. There's 3 different areas. First, you have selection, then organization, and interpretation. All 3 of these areas help us when we're perceiving other people. They're the steps that we go through when we do it. Now, when we first start to do it, it's when we go back and think about us doing that, it's very quick. We see the stimuli, we put it in, we organize it somehow, and then we interpret that behavior based on our own needs. What I want us to really kind of discuss and think about is how many times that you've used this process. And has it been right on? Has your perception of someone been right, or has it not been right? Because the thing about perception is that we have to remember that sometimes they're wrong. Sometimes we choose to look at the wrong stimuli, and that there's exceptions to every rule. So the first thing is selection. Well, that's the stimuli that we keep from someone else, that we remember about them. Maybe it was the color of their hair. Maybe it was the color of their shirt. Maybe it was something that was on them. Whatever it is, this is the stimuli that we choose to keep. After we select it, we go into organization. There's 4 different types of organization. The 4 types are prototype, and that's the most clear and concise. Then we go into stereotyping, and that's where maybe you've had a perception of someone before. Maybe you've seen something in the media, maybe you've heard something, maybe this has always been your experience, and so then you stereotype about that person or that culture. And then you look at personal constraints, and these are like the mental yardsticks that we kind of look at people. So we'll have this little yardstick and be like, well, they're smart, but they're not intelligent. Or, well, they're kind, but they're not that kind. Or, well, they're clean, or they look nice. But we're always measuring them up against this yardstick that we have in our minds, that we have said that this is what this person would be like, right? And then the 4th thing that we do, the 4th of all of them, is the scripts. And these are like the narratives that we keep in our minds. These are the guidelines that we have for this person. What we think that they would say, what we think that they wouldn't say, all of that. And that goes into the process of perception, So this is, and then the interpretation is what makes sense to us. How do we interpret their behavior? How do we think about their behavior using the selection and the organization? And so under that interpretation, we also have attribution. It's explaining why something happened or why they act a certain way that they do. And then sometimes we have errors in that we look at it very differently, like using the self-serving bias. And that's, it's a bias against ourselves. And I always think about this when I am complaining about someone who is always late to work, or someone who isn't fully doing what they need to be doing. And there's other errors in there as well that you will need to know, and why we use those errors. Why do we have those? The other part, and this is Jezebel. Sorry about that. That's my baby cat. We also have influences on our perception. So we have the physiological, we have the expectations, we have the age of someone, and we have culture. And within that, we have the social location. So if we go back to that and we want to think about what our influences are, and especially going into that expectations. So we expect others to be the way that we are. We expect others to do what we would do. Whether they would or not doesn't matter, but we expect that. I always think back to when I was in college and I had all these different jobs, and I expected everyone to do that. Everyone should work as hard as I do, and when they don't, I have a problem. And not only that, but I tend to judge myself more charitably than I would other people. So if someone is late, like I said before with the errors, if someone is late, then I'm going to say if they're always late. But if I am, I may cut myself more slack than I will them. And age is another factor. So if we even think about even being in class, have you ever been in class with students who are maybe more like younger, fresh out of high school, younger meaning like 18 or 19 or 20, they're fresh out of high school, and you're looking at them and you perceive them a certain way, like they don't take this class seriously, they're not even going to do their work, they're always going to be disruptful, all of that, and that goes into that age. And then culture as well, where they're from, and then within that we have the social location and the roles. How are we trained, and how do we expect others to be trained as well? We're going to stop here, and then I'll pick back up in a few minutes.